People that have woken up in bed with a stranger. What's your story? My roommate had a party. I woke up in the morning and there was a girl who had drunkenly snuck into my bed and fallen asleep. We woke up at pretty much the same time in the early AM, both very confused. We talked for a minute and she insisted on taking a bathroom break, borrowing some PJs, and snuggling back to sleep for a while. It somehow just felt like the natural thing to do. We ended up dating for a while and the joke was that we had slept together before we met. At my brother and sister-in-law's in Brunswick, Georgia. CL had been subtly flirty with me all night. We all were *completely* shit-faced on red wine, and my wife passed out on the sofa. I staggered off to bed. I awoke in the wee hours with a large warm body fully pressed up against my back. I was immediately terrified it was CL, and I was going to have to either make a scene or have some serious splaining to do. Turns out it was BL's Rottweiler. I went back to sleep. Day after a rush party I woke up to an alarm that wasn't mine. Heard a voice to my left say it's 6, gotta go to work, reached over and handed her the phone and pretended to go back to bed. She was putting her shoes on by the dorm door and said AWW thank you. Opened my eyes and apparently after blacking out and doing the deed I put a water bottle and granola bar in her shoe for work. Dunno what happened there. Lots of alcohol and weed at a party in a friend's place. I remember at some point I told people I needed to sleep and went to an empty room. The last thing I remember is this girl coming to bed and we started discussing the world's problems. I don't remember any other thing. The weirdest part was morning. We woke up, saw that we were both naked. Awesome. I told her I don't remember anything from the night, not even her name. We have a proper introduction, have sex again, because why not, have breakfast outside, then share a taxi home. We were living close and never saw each other again. I guess it felt weird for both of us. Was in college, went out too hard on a Thursday night because I had no class the next day. Woke up in my own room to a girl standing there getting dressed. I was dumbfounded. She super casually put on her jacket, said I have to get to class, and left before I could even get a word out. I never saw her again. Tried to ask friends who I came home with. Everyone said I just disappeared. Her face is burned into my mind and now, 5 years later, I have no clue what happened or who I spent the night with. Not woke up with one, but came home from primary school around 11 years of age. To find a complete stranger in my bed. Being completely naive thinking he was a family friend. I made us both sandwiches to give to him. I returned to my room to find him gone. I now look back at this with complete horror. My family finds it amusing that it took me years to tell my family about it. I know a guy who went home with a stranger. Went pee in the middle of the night naked. Went back to bed. Woke up to screaming. He had gone back to the wrong room and was naked in her mother's bed. Not exactly the answer to the question, but my dad told me something scary after his stroke. Because he couldn't feel one side of his body, he would sometimes wake up in the middle of the night and think a stranger had broken in and was laying next to him. He would have to calm down and remember that he'd had a major stroke and didn't immediately realize that the person he thought was laying next to him was he himself. Was a female in my mid-20s and fell asleep in a 60+ man's hotel bed after a night of drinking in restaurant across from said hotel. What could have been a recipe for disaster turned into him saying back quote, "If I ever had a daughter I hope she'd be just like you. I called ya a cab and here's your wallet. Be safe now." Probably not what you imagined. As a kid, I would sleepwalk at night. In the morning, I would have no recollection of what happened. I spent the night at a friend's house when I was about 10, and the family had a fire going in the fireplace in their living room. My friend's mom decided to sleep on the couch to make sure the fire went out, and the dad went to sleep in the parents' bedroom. Due to the door to their bedroom always being closed, I had never been inside. which was very disorienting the next morning when I awoke in said bedroom as the dad was just waking up and getting out of his bed. He had assumed during the night I was his son and didn't question anything when I slipped into bed with him. Kudos to dad for not making it any more awkward than it already was. And that's the story of how I awoke next to my friend's dad. Got really drunk at a dorm party. Ended up carrying a passed out girl up to her room. 3 flights of stairs. Elevator was out. Plunked her in her bed. Took her shoes off. Then passed out on her floor. She woke me up by stepping on me and yelling at me. I was too hungover to argue and just left. Had a nice homemade dinner date with my partner at the time. Watched a movie. Then kissed goodnight and they went home. And I went to bed alone a little later. Woke up around 2 AM and realized there was a living body next to me and almost shit myself. Took me a minute to figure out that date was all a dream and it was just my partner. I have vivid, mundane dreams that are difficult to immediately distinguish from mundane reality. We had in fact had a similar date IRL that evening, but it did not end with us parting ways. In a dorm room, early September. Roommate came home and didn't lock the door. Person who lived in the room the last year came in and climbed into what was now my bed and passed out. I woke up. Hilarity ensued. We became great friends. Away at college. Went to a bar. Met a girl. I woke up the next morning in an on-campus apartment sharing a recliner with said girl. Neither of us lived on campus or knew who lived in the apartment we ended up at. How about the opposite? I was out drinking with this girl and her friends I had just met. Ended up going back to their hotel room and hooking up. Fell asleep around 3 AM. Woke up around 5 AM with a bad hangover and completely alone. Somewhere between 3 and 5 the girl and her friends packed their shit and checked out of the hotel while I was asleep. My family own a big farm in Queensland, Australia, and it's mostly just unshaded bushland, but we lease the area out to a cattle producer. Since we have breeding land we have a lot of calves every couple of years and there is a feral dog population that hangs around trying to pick off the calves. So I go around every few weeks or so and do a several day hunting trip just walking around. It was in the middle of a drought, so I couldn't light a fire. So I just slept in a sleeping bag under a tree in an area I knew pretty well. It was a randomly cold night in summer, so I was happy to get rugged up. I woke up in the morning with my left leg feeling really tight, and I tried to shimmy my pants down in the sleeping bag, because I thought they were just tangled up a bit. I felt something odd, so I unzipped the sleeping bag and there was a red belly black snake wrapped around my leg having a good snooze. I was so dead tired I wasn't even freaking out. I just tapped it awake and said, "Hey mate, can you leave?" And it released my leg and just buggered off. I should have been way more scared at the time, but I was destroyed from the day before. I used to date this really shitty guy. We lived together for 5 years, and in that time some hella dicey shit happened. But this one makes the top 5. It was a Sunday night, around 2 AM. I was asleep in bed when I'm woken by that feeling of someone staring at me. Assuming it's my then boyfriend, I tell him I'm trying to sleep and don't want to have sex. Then I hear a laugh I'd never heard before. I fly out of bed and there's this guy sitting on the edge of my bed laughing his ass off. I ask who he is. He says I'm Andrew, boyfriend's buddy. Then he tells me how my ex told him I was a prude and would be mad if he came in our bed, but he didn't believe my ex cause boyfriend was so cool. Why would he date a boring girl? Then he asked if I wanted some coke. I walked out and told my ex to get rid of him and let me sleep since I worked in the morning. His reply, "Well, now that you're up, can you take us to McDonald's?" I was taking a train from Munich to Venice. It was one of those trains that the little rooms have chairs that pull out into beds. A older Italian gentleman came in the room, and as the train took off he made the sleep hand gesture. So I crashed out with this old dude. I woke up to him tapping me letting me know we will be in Venice after the next stop. I was around 19 years old and at a weekend festival where most people camped out in tents. I got hammered and blacked out on Saturday and woke up on an air mattress in somebody else's tent. I sat up to get my bearings at some point in the morning and a couple was also in the tent, but not laying on the air mattress. The guy sat up right after me and said, "Buddy, I don't know who you are, but you better get the fuck out of here." I didn't stick around to ask any questions. I woke up to the sound of rain hitting the tent I was in, not my tent, and the random guy next to me saying, "Oh fuck, my unicycle." Well, I did, but not in the way that you'd think. So basically I went to sleep in my friend's bed because he got on the sofa and I woke up with a girl next to me. We didn't do anything the night before because multiple people have reported that they saw her coming into the room and just laying down next to me telling them that I was her boyfriend, which I wasn't, and then going to sleep. She may have confused me for her boyfriend, and when I woke up I just snuck out and went home. Edit. Thank you for all of the replies and upvotes, it means a lot. I can't sit here and reply to every single comment, but just know that I'm upvoting all of the comments here. While still living at my parents' house, woke up after a club night. It was still a bit dark, but I saw someone next to me in my bed. Spent 15 minutes trying to figure who this was before I decided to take a look. Turns out it were my extra blankets I used to fill up the space between bed and wall. Decided I needed a lot more sleep before going out of bed.